Hello, good morning and welcome. There's 48 hours to go until the Tories start gathering in Manchester for what one person joked could be their last ever conference. Kemi Badenoch has told our Anne in an exclusive interview to stop looking for sugar highs just to get us through the week. So expectation management appears to be well underway. My name is Sam Coates of Sky News.
And I'm Anne McElvoy from Politico. I sat down with the Tory leader at Westminster yesterday, clearly seeking to shift attention from her early focus on culture wars and free speech issues and an assault instead on Labour's economic record.
It's a great primer for this conference, this interview. I have to say, I know what's coming up. So I'm excited to hear not only what she said, but what Anne, who has known Kemi for a bit of time, made of it all. And I love how Kemi Badenoch has come out swinging. There is a bit where you ask her about recent defections, because the Tories have just lost prominent thinkers like Danny Kruger, and she just wallops him, saying, not everyone has the stamina to go through tough times. Ouch.
You can hear more of that interview in a moment. And of course, politics at Sam and Anne's has gone into turbocharge over this conference season. We'll be doing a special conference opening edition on Sunday lunchtime from the Conservatives gathering in Manchester. There in person with live Sam and Anne events at the Politico pub. So if you're with the Tories in Manchester, come and say hi.
Right, that's not the only thing going on that you need to know about today. The Prime Minister is in Copenhagen, seeing fellow EU leaders as part of the European political community. The Prime Minister wants to use that summit to make progress establishing joint migrant return hubs. The UK, Denmark, Italy, Germany and Netherlands hope to strike deals with nations in the Western Balkans and Africa to send back failed asylum seekers to there. He also signalled his desire to rework the Refugee Convention, although unlike reform and unlike the Tories, he doesn't seem to want to leave it.
In a press release overnight, Number 10 doubled down on their strict messaging on all of this and echoing the new Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. Keir Starmer said he wants to strip back the existing rights of refugees who've been granted asylum in Britain. The words from Starmer, there would be no golden ticket to settling in the UK. And in case we didn't get the message, Sam, a government official added pointedly that there are people asylum shopping across the continent, looking for the country that offers the most. And this now is Labour rhetoric.
The big divide, quite evidently, between Labour and the rest is that Keir Starmer is hoping for a multilateral, i.e. a negotiated solution for all of that, rather than a unilateral one. The big question in British politics is what happens if he doesn't get one? I mean, I think there's optimism that there'll be some moves, but there has been on stuff like this for as long as I've known. So let's see. I also want to, in a little bit, to talk about the growing backlash to compulsory digital ID, because that is in the news. But more on all of that in a moment. I just think we want to clear as much time to talk about your interview with Kemi Badenoch. When I did that massive YouGov MRP polling projection last week, the Tories came out on essentially an existentially low number of seats, and if there was an election right now, in the kind of dozens. So you've seen her. We haven't seen her for a bit. You've seen her. How is she? What's she like?
As you say, this is a particularly testing moment for Kemi Badenoch. She's sagging in the polls, that wave of defections to Nigel Farage, and just generally, Sam, as we both reflected at Labour Party conference, a sense that the fight is now between Reform and Labour. I put it to her, she didn't even figure in Keir Starmer's speech from Liverpool. So what was the mood? Well, yeah, as you say, I've known Kemi Badenoch for a while. She has this very punchy temperament, but there can be sort of sunshine and showers with Kemi. And on this occasion, I actually thought on the eve of conference, she was surprisingly, upbeat would probably be inviting an odd reply, but she did seem like she was quite looking forward to it. And I think what she decided was that she was going to go hard on the economy, hard directly at Labour. But she also said, look, I've got a problem here. And my own party is, as she put it, a distressed asset. I'm dealing with a party that's had lots of problems. It's at the end of a long period in government, things went badly wrong. So she didn't hide that as much as perhaps that's been swept under the carpet before. Let's hear her describing the state of her party.
The idea that we're going to turn 14 years and a historic defeat of our record overnight is for the birds. It just doesn't happen like that. What I'm doing is picking up a distressed asset, turning it around. That means that sometimes, if I want to use a corporate analogy, the quarterly returns may not be great, but the long-term strategy will deliver. If we're looking for sugar highs just to get us through the week, get us through the day, we will not win the next election. We are attempting to do something that has not been done before.
Wow. I actually think that little section of the interview might be one for the ages, and it's either clever or it's really not very clever from Kemi Badenoch for this reason. Look, her big thing is truth-telling, and she's clearly being very honest about the state of the Conservative Party and saying it's going to take time. Right, fine. We know that is her strategy. But calling the Conservative Party a distressed asset, it's like one of those things that might just end up being hung around her neck like an albatross, because bluntly, a lot of Tory MPs worried that that's exactly what it is. And so people repeat the phrase, but don't repeat the optimism that she insists that she has. So my biggest question for you, Anne, is her coming out swinging another person's tin ear? Will Tory MPs look at what your encounter of her was like and go, yes, she gets it, or oh God, she's bogged down in kind of still a rather involved process of renewal that's going to take too long. I'm not sure this entire Kemi project is going to work.
A thought on that. Who's she addressing this to? She's talking to her own party on the eve of conference at this point. And I think that there are concerns about Kemi Badenoch's leadership. Everyone knows that. I was teasing her a bit about Robert Jenrick being on endless social media manoeuvres, suggesting that he might be the Andy Burnham of the Conservative Party, which sort of she very deliberately, I think they did go down that route or answer using his name, said they were all one team, etc., etc. But the context here, Sam, was that we were talking about the fractured landscape of the parties, and would it not be more sensible to kind of have some form of merger with reform? I said if it was a business, you might be in merger territory by now and have a big block on the right and right of centre. And then she came out with this line about the distressed asset. But that does show, as you say, the way that she's thinking about her own party, that she wants to say to them, we know that we look like we're in a bit of a mess at the moment. And then she goes into a riff, and I think we're going to hear that coming up now on how she saw immigration policy and her approach. But crucially, listen to the end, Sam, how she saw Kemi Badenoch.
The Conservative Party has been around for 200 years. Our principles are timeless. And as I said earlier, it's when we stray from our principles that we go wrong. Those are not Conservative principles. It was not something I agreed with. Many of my colleagues will support me in that. Many of them disagreed with it. But at the end of the day, a party takes the shape of the leader. I'm the leader now. And the party is taking my shape. I'm not Boris Johnson. I'm not Rishi Sunak, not Liz Truss, not David Cameron, not Mrs. Thatcher either, or John Major. I'm Kemi Badenoch. And at this conference, people are going to see what a Kemi Badenoch Conservative Party looks like.
There is something about her tone, about how she is very clear she will impose herself on the Conservative Party, that to my ear, and I'm interested what you think about this, Anne, but to my ear, feels a little bit unconservative, a little bit uncollegiate. I mean, in that clip, she's throwing previous leaders under the bus like nobody's business. I am the big forceful figure. It is on one level the vibe that she wants, but do you think that's credible given where she is in the polls and how she's handled herself? Is the message and the reality like not a little bit jarring there?
I'm not sure that I thought it was under the bus, in fairness. I thought she was saying, I've got everybody saying I should be the next Mrs. Thatcher. It's quite a risk, isn't it, to say as Conservative leader, I'm not Mrs. Thatcher, because it does rather invite the answer, no, you're not, and I think that is a risk. And Kemi Badenoch does take risks when she communicates. If you just ask me how her vibe was in general, and that riff came off the back of it, I don't think it was intended to be quite as sort of flinty or uncompromising. It was more the party needs to know it's under my management now. That was very much the answer when I mentioned Robert Jenrick and other challengers. I won this leadership race. I am the leader. I will shape the party in my likeness, not in the likeness of all of these others. Now, as you say, you could say, Conservative bat hearing, well, actually, a lot of these leaders were electorally successful and we're a long way now and Kemi Badenoch from being electorally successful. Some people will respond like that. I think she feels that she's got one big shot at this. This is, we've talked about Save Starmer Labour conference. I think this is, do we keep Kemi conference? And I think the Kemi Badenoch line is, well, at least I'm going to tell you who I am and also move myself to that territory of Labour's weaknesses on business and the economy. Slightly surprisingly to me, because, as I say, I think her vibe was pretty upbeat. Oh, I said the vibe word. Sam's triggered. But her mood was very positive. She was wearing one of those wonderful, colourful Nigerian dresses that she wears. I always think you can tell when Kemi Badenoch's in a good mood because she wears one of those. And she she looked like she was raring to go for this conference. So I think that was what she wanted to put across. But then there was quite the bludgeoning of Rachel Reeves and her record on business and the economy.
Business got disillusioned with us because they felt that we were being complacent and weren't helping. And they thought that perhaps, Labour might do a better job or couldn't be worse. Now they have seen, they've got the change. The change is a lot worse. And they didn't, I have businesses coming up to me saying, Rachel Reeves lied to me. She told me she was not going to do this and she did it. Just a few months ago, Rachel Reeves said to the CBI on stage, I won't be coming back for more tax rises. And now she's doing that.
What'd you make of that, Sam?
I mean, that feels to me quite fertile territory. If I'm being honest, the Conservative Party would be back in its happy place if it could eke even more of an advantage on the economy. Given the run up to the budget, given the expectation of 20 to 30 billion pounds of tax rises, business is sort of tiptoeing towards the Conservative Party would be a sort of one of the big positives that she can do, because that's the kind of thing that can improve her aura and, yes, her vibe. For an opposition party, vibe is much more important than for a government who also can show and deliver policy and implement it.
That's an amendment to your general anti-vibe argument, isn't it?
It is, and because we have very little else to play with. But there is some policy, and it's some policy that's eked out in The Spectator today. Tim Shipman's also done an interview with Kemi Badenoch, and he got her to say that she wants to scrap the entire Climate Change Act. This comes off the back of her saying that she wants to admit that you're not going to get to net zero by 2050. She says she believes in climate change, but she's now unpicked the other half, as it were, of the sort of climate change set of commitments. This is the Climate Change Act, for those that aren't familiar with the legislation, the things that set what are called carbon budgets, specific legally binding targets that come up every 3 years. Again, I can't help but feeling that this is potentially fertile territory, because I'm not sure how this government meets its carbon budgets particularly comfortably. It's making all sorts of announcements like the one about Gatwick last week without much reference to how that might compromise the carbon budgets. And given that the government doesn't come out swinging on this territory, I think there is a sort of a degree of political sense for the Tories to push back. We come back to the basic rule of politics, Anne. If one side isn't making the argument in favour of something, and I don't think Labour is anymore making green arguments and arguments in favour of carbon budgets outside of Ed Miliband, then the Tories actually have an open door to try and shift the Overton window of what's acceptable. So that was her big policy, that sort of thing. But overall, she's got about 2 months, because it's in November that we will get the first anniversary of her leadership, but also the ability of people to challenge the Tory leader by putting in letters to the 1922 chairman. And so there is this is why this conference is so existential, because in about 2 months, her colleagues will have to decide whether to stick or whether to flip the question of the leadership. And that is why so much rides on her performance all the way through this week.
It's intriguing, isn't it? We've got two leaders in Labour and the Tories both being told effectively going into their conference that they're in the last chance saloon. So back to the government of the day and how that big announcement from Keir Starmer on digital ID, the Brit card, how is that aging after, it must be fully 4 days. Now, Sam, when we first discussed this, you told us there were deep doubts about this in Whitehall, and also ministers and the bureaucracy, if you like, that pincer movement, sounded quite critical about the deliverability of this idea. And how's that working out now?
Since Keir Starmer announced the digital ID policy, it's not even a week ago at that progressive conference, weird timing for it. Honestly, so much has not gone to plan. So all the other political parties pretty much, including Kemi Badenoch's Conservatives, have come out against it. And I just hear alarm bells. So you're right. Like, earlier in the week, we told you that, literally the Home Office has passed on this policy. They're leaving it, even though it's big on migration. Oh, there's the washing machine. That shows you that we're between conference seasons as well, because so much dirty clothes before we go up to Manchester.
We're having a good one on the domestic front this morning, everyone.
We certainly are. Political parties have come out against. Cabinet ministers are extremely sceptical. They think that the announcement was made by the Prime Minister was rushed and that details haven't been thought through. And now something new has happened. I was listening to a new podcast actually from the Times and the Sunday Times called The State of It, and they were talking about ministerial concerns as well about the policy and how Shabana Mahmood on stage had been saying it's not a Home Office thing, it's a Liz Kendall thing. Good luck, Liz. I can't imagine you love having this in your portfolio. But the biggest thing that's caught my eye was some polling that shows that since early summer, support for any kind of digital ID has collapsed. It's absolutely gone through the floor. And now it's gone from, roughly 35% in early summer to 14% backing it now post-announcement. Now, I think I found the answer. And this answer matters not just in the context of the support for digital ID, but in a much, much, much bigger way for our politics, Anne. Because one of the things that has undoubtedly, in my mind, changed the view of voters about digital ID is a series of videos that are floating around social media, getting millions of views, raising the prospect of the potential things that could, the sort of mission creep of digital ID. And this is a story for me as much about the possibility of AI in our politics and how it might shape what people think as it is narrowly about this policy. I just want to play you something that I'm fascinated by on X. It's a video. It's an AI-generated video about a dystopian future that doesn't exist. So all of what you're about to hear is fictional, but it tells you a story about mission creep with digital ID designed to scare the bejesus out of everybody because of what it could, in theory, do.
Can I get another pint, please?
Sorry, sir. Your Brit card says you've exceeded your alcohol quota for this week.
Sorry, sir. Your Brit card says you've already flown twice this year. We're having to restrict passengers with higher than average emissions profiles.
Sorry, I'm afraid your funds have been temporarily frozen. Your recent social media post did not align with the government's narrative.
So again, what you just heard isn't true. It's AI generated. It's a fictional future. But here's the thing, Anne. The government can't really hit back and say definitely these things won't happen, partly because they can't control future use of this, but also more immediately, they don't know whether this policy will be built on the e-visa system, the passport system, the driving license system, the veteran system. They can't say why there are safeguards because they didn't do the planning before they announced the policy. And it is that is one of the reasons, the dysfunctionality of Number 10's policymaking system, that is one of the reasons why cabinet ministers, I think, are still sceptical about Keir Starmer's ability to truly turn around his leadership.
Gosh, that's quite an extraordinary example. As you say, I was talking to Liam Byrne, who was the minister for it under Tony Blair at a party conference. He was saying, well, of course I'm in favour of it because I put it on the table all that time ago. But there is that scare factor around the AI and the amount of AI scraping that this is going to enable. And as you suggest, unless the government can come up with its guardrails on that and reassure people, you're seeing that dive in popularity of an idea that was put to them only days ago as something that was going to be fantastically useful to them. We were going to be the new Estonia, where it works very well, but that's because it's sort of been plumbed into the society and the new society that's emerged there after communism, the risks of the Russians next door, and also just a smoothness of public service access when you use it and to your records, etc. But to sort of drop it in the era of AI and concerns about AI without in any sense preparing the public for it, let alone it seems many of their own colleagues at Westminster, I think that has been a risky move.
That point was so good that you can hear in the background Bob the cat purring along to it. Sorry about the chaos in the background. The chaos in the background. That's what happens in the between party conference moments. You could also hear the alarm, which means our time is up. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed Anne's interview, and we will be back on Sunday for Politics at Sam and Anne's from Manchester. So come and see us. Come and say hello. Come and tell us what you want in this podcast. Come and give us some tips. Come and tell us the story of what's going on behind the scenes. And I look forward to seeing you there.
See you in Manchester.